Jessica was a happy-go-lucky little girl who loved nothing more than playing with her dolls. Her parents had given her a beautiful porcelain doll as a gift for her 7th birthday. It had big blue eyes and golden curls, and Jessica was over the moon. However, things took a turn for the worse soon after she received the doll. Jessica began to notice that the doll seemed to be alive, moving on its own and watching her every move. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, but as the days went by, the doll's behavior became more and more unsettling. One night, Jessica woke up to find the doll sitting at the foot of her bed. Its eyes were glowing in the darkness, and Jessica could feel it. Jessica was terrified and tried to run away, but the doll was surprisingly fast. It chased her all around the house, its eyes never leaving her. Eventually, Jessica managed to lock herself in her room and barricade the door, hoping to keep the doll out. But the doll was not deterred. It continued to move around the house, trying to find a way in. Jessica could hear it scratching at the door, trying to break through. She knew that she was not safe. As the days went by, Jessica became more and more afraid. She tried to tell her parents about the doll, but they didn't believe her. They thought it was just her imagination running wild. Jessica knew that she was on her own. One day, Jessica decided that she had had enough. She gathered up all her courage and decided to confront the doll. She went down to the basement, where she had been keeping the doll hidden away, and prepared to face it head-on. When she entered the room, she saw that the doll was no longer there. She searched all around, but there was no sign of it. Just as she was about to give up, she heard a noise behind her. She turned around, and there it was, staring at her with its cold blue eyes. Jessica tried to run, but the doll was too fast. It chased her around the room, laughing maniacally. Jessica could feel its cold porcelain hands wrapping around her neck, choking the life out of her. Just as she thought that she was going to die, the doll suddenly stopped. It looked up at her, its eyes glowing brightly. Jessica could feel a strange sensation wash over her, as if something was leaving her body. When the doll was gone, Jessica collapsed to the floor, exhausted and traumatized. She never spoke of the incident again, but she was never the same. She became withdrawn and quiet, never quite recovering from the horror that she had experienced. Years later, a family moved into the house. They found the doll in the basement and gave it to their own little girl as a gift. But as they settled into their new home, strange things began to happen. Objects moved on their own, doors opened and closed by themselves, and they could hear strange whispers in the night. The family tried to ignore it, but they knew that something was wrong. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that something sinister was lurking in the shadows. And every time they looked at the doll, they could feel a sense of unease wash over them. They never knew the true horror that the doll had brought upon Jessica, but they could sense that there was something deeply wrong with it. They tried to get rid of it, but it always seemed to find its way back into their home. The family never spoke of the doll again, but they knew that it was watching them, waiting for its next victim. And as the years passed, the house became known as a place of terror, with strange things happening there that no one could explain. People would hear screams and laughter coming from the house late at night, and some even claimed to have seen the doll moving on its own, its eyes glowing with an evil light. But no one ever dared to investigate, too afraid of what they might find. Eventually, the house was abandoned, left to decay and crumble in the shadows. But even now, years later, people still speak of the strange occurrences that took place there, and some say that on quiet nights, when the wind is still and the moon is full, you can still hear the sound of a little girl's laughter echoing through the halls. The doll may be gone, but its legacy lives on, a dark and terrifying reminder of the horrors that can lurk in the most innocent of objects. And who knows, maybe someday the doll will return, seeking out its next victim and bringing with it a wave of unspeakable terror and horror.